What do you get when Elon Musk torches his own brand, the US dollar nosedives, and robots start deciding who gets fired? You get a week that makes Black Mirror look like a documentary. California just bulldozed one of the most powerful anti housing laws in the country. Finally. But will that actually make rents drop or the prices of housing drop? Meanwhile, big name companies are slamming the brakes on hiring. And if you think AI is just helping with resumes, think again. It's deciding who gets promoted and who gets booted. And the dollar, it's having its worst year since Richard Nixon was president. All that and more today on the Communiverse. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me. First up, Elon Musk and the Tesla brand collapse. This is sad, but not expected, not entirely unexpected. Let's talk numbers because Tesla isn't just losing brand respect, it's losing valuation. According to Yahoo Finance, Tesla's forward PE ratio is about 76. That's compared to just 5.9 for Ford. That's a gulf usually reserved for high-flying tech stocks, not automakers. Add to that a trailing PE of roughly 181 versus Ford's around 9.3. Tesla is being priced as if it had decades of growth baked in, not a traditional car company. But here's the kicker. If Tesla were valued like Ford, a PE of 9, it would fall from $1 trillion, which it is today, to about 50 or $60 billion. That's a 95% drop. Even with a generous PE of 15, that's still a loss of 85 to 90%. So while Musk politics sparked protests and headlines, the bigger threat may be what's happening in the stock market. Investors are losing faith, and that's a brand crisis money alone can't fix. Okay, let's step back here for a minute and really talk about the messages being sent. Now, I'm not the first one to note this. Scott Galloway has pointed this out as well, but Tesla's brand reputation has essentially been destroyed in just a few months, and it's perhaps the greatest destruction of a brand reputation than ever, really, when you think about it. Elon Musk aligned himself with the very people who don't like EVs. In the United States, self-described Republicans, conservatives don't like electric vehicles by and large. It's seen as not manly. It's not burning carbon. It's not that smell of gas in the morning. And it's never been that popular with that crowd. The EV folks were the liberals, the progressives, the people in San Francisco, the people in big cities, the college-educated pro-environmentalists were so drawn to environmental cars and the electric cars. And Elon Musk, with his not only his embrace of the current president of the United States, but giving him $300 million and then being head of his Doge, cutting so many things that were near and dear to the hearts of progressives, liberals, Democrats, the very people who were the biggest fans of Tesla. So he's completely alienated them. He's not come back and figured out how to attract a whole new audience because the MAGA crowd are not huge fans of electric vehicles. They're just seen as not manly enough. Now, to further stir things up, Musk has broken from Trump and the MAGA crowd. Trump's saying, I wouldn't even want an electric car, although he supposedly bought one just a few months ago and was essentially doing infomercials for Elon Musk at the White House. That's all gone. So at the moment, it's a very odd situation that Musk has driven up his own negative ratings. In the process, he's driven up the negative ratings of Tesla, but Tesla is still given an astronomical valuation. It's still valued at $1 trillion. And at some point, investors are going to realize this is not going to become $1 trillion company. when it was a new, shiny company more than a decade ago. Okay, seeing the future attached to the same guy who makes rockets and satellites and so many innovative things. Okay, we buy into his vision. We're buying the future. We're valuing the company not based on its revenues and profits today, but its grand vision. Well, he's been selling the grand vision of robotic cars, autonomous cars, for more than a decade. You go back and look at the record every 2 years. He says, in 2 years, we're going to have automated cars, autonomous cars driven by robots. It's going to revolutionize everything. We'll be the most profitable company in the world. He's essentially said, mark my words, in 2 years. Well, 2 years happened, 2 years happened, 2 years. It never happens. Yes, it is true. In the last couple of weeks, they did a test of autonomous vehicles in Austin, Texas. There was still a person in the front seat. It wasn't rolled out to the mass public. So there's some progress, but there's a lot of competition now. There's Waymo, there's other cars too. I predict that we're not that far away from Tesla getting a valuation that's comparable to other car dealers. Now, I'm not telling you to short the stock. I'm not giving you financial advice. But I'm telling you, the message that investors have been sending for the last dozen years or so is that we believe Elon Musk. We think he's a genius. We think he's capable of turning sawdust into gold no matter what he does. That has been the message investors have sent by giving it $1 trillion valuation, given the puny sales and puny profits. Those days, I believe, are going to be over soon. It's still around. He's not fallen that far, even though his ranking as a brand has plummeted. That has not yet transferred to the valuation of the company. But to put this in perspective, I'll restate what I said in the opening. If Tesla were simply valued based on its earnings, the same way that a perfectly fine, reputable, stable car company like Ford is valued, it wouldn't be worth $1 trillion. It would be worth $50 to $60 billion. That's a 95% drop. That means if it does go there and you own, $100,000 of Tesla stock, your stock's going to be worth $5,000. You will have lost 95%. Full disclosure to any regulators out there, I'm not giving you financial advice. And I'm not a stockbroker, and I'm not soliciting investment funds, and I'm not telling you what to do. So make your own decisions there. I am saying that this entire company is based on the belief that Elon Musk is essentially a god, and people are sending the message they have faith in them. He can't keep spinning around, going crazy. There can't continue to be stories in reputable newspapers like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times saying he's got a ketamine addiction problem. This cannot continue, and investors continue to send the message that, hey, we think you're the greatest thing ever. Now, I'm not predicting ill will on Elon Musk, although just this past week, a reporter asked Donald Trump, are you thinking about deporting Elon Musk back to his home country of South Africa or Canada or wherever? And he certainly didn't rule it out. We'll have to look into that. He does seem to fit the category of a Michael Jackson, a Prince, someone who's in a bubble, surrounded by enablers, who suffers an early demise. I'm not hoping that. I wish him and everyone else good health, but he does seem like someone who's out of control. His attention span spinning around, tweeting 10,000 times a day about every issue under the planet, talking about creating a political. How do you create a political party to battle with the most powerful politician on earth, the president, simultaneously run 5 other companies, invest in a million things, and run $1 trillion automobile company? A lot of people are starting to realize that he may be talented. He may be the most talented business person in the world, but he isn't a god. He can't do all of these things well at the same time. And more people are starting to realize it. So I think that this is only the beginning of the fall of Tesla. And look, they make some good cars, but a lot of other people make good electric cars these days as well. Other people are making good autonomous vehicles. Other people are making robots. He no longer has a huge first mover advantage in these because he's splintering his time. He's splintering his resources. How many new products did Tesla come up with or SpaceX come up with when he was off in Washington every day, running around with baseball caps and his kid in the White House? It's just hard to be innovative. Steve Jobs, someone that he admires, and most tech people admire, was known for focus. He focused on one product at a time, sometimes for years. He focused on one company at a time. Apple, then for a while, Pixar, then Apple. He didn't try to run 3, 4, 5, 10 companies at once and the United States government. So a little bit of difference there. So thank you so much for joining me today on the Communiverse. This is the show about business, tech, and culture, decoded through the lens of communication to boost your personal success. That's what we're about here. So we look at the top stories of the day. This is sort of an early prototype of the show. We're going to be launching officially September 2nd, and it'll be on all podcast platforms, all video platforms. But I appreciate you joining me here live today. If you can see this or hear this, feel free to leave a comment. If you're watching, let me know where you are today. I would love to hear from you. Okay, next big story, this one coming out of California. California, always an interesting place, things going on. California has changed laws regarding their housing. California just bulldozed one of its biggest housing barriers known as the CEQA. For decades, NIMBYs, those are the not in my backyards, and unions used this environmental law to block everything from dorms to apartments, claiming noise, traffic, even students were pollution. But this week, Governor Gavin Newsom signed 2 bills gutting the CEQA for most urban housing. No more environmental reviews, no more union-only carve-outs, even daycare centers and manufacturing plants are now exempt. It's a huge win for YIMBYs. If you're not familiar with that word, that's yes in my backyard. A big shift from labor and maybe the start of an actual housing boom. The rules that strangled housing in California finally getting hauled off in a dump truck. At least that's the hope. That's the hope. Okay, what's the real message going on here? Governor Newsom has listened to a lot of his constituents. He's also listened to Fox News and his opponents around the country saying housing prices in California are crazy. Now, a little more background. Gavin Newsom, popular governor of California, wants to be the president of the United States, is doing a lot of maneuvers to position himself as the president of, or the likely Democratic nominee. He hopes to be the likely Democratic nominee for president. But he's got one big problem, and that is California is insanely expensive for people to live in, primarily because of housing costs. These days, you can get what looks like a shack that would be, $20,000 in Mississippi, and in California, it's $1 million. Now, I'm exaggerating, but only a tiny little bit. It's because there's so many people there, and even though there are not thousands and thousands of new people immigrating every day to California, there's still a vast, huge shortage because so few homes are ever built. So when new people come, new students, people just moving from one town to another, even from within the state, are trying to buy a house, what they're finding is there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 possible purchasers of the house for every one house available. Basic supply and demand, prices skyrocket. So this is a huge problem for any politician in California who wants to run for national office, because all the other party has to do is run nationwide ads and say, hey, if you vote for this guy or this woman, you'll never be able to afford a house. Your children will never be able to afford a house. You'll be living in a tent somewhere. And a little bit of hyperbole, perhaps, but there's an element of truth there. Housing has skyrocketed to far, far, far beyond the ability of someone with a median income to pay for it in California. Now, if you're low income, forget it. You're probably going to be living in your car. And I say that as someone who loves California. I almost moved there. I almost went to law school in California. I love visiting there. But there's simply no getting around the fact that housing costs are out of control, crazy, in part because many, many years ago, environmental rules were written into law because people in California love their environment. They care about the environment. It is one of the most beautiful environments of any state, any place in the world. But they were written in such a way that it became really easy to stop anyone from building a new house or building an apartment building. So if you have a nice house on your street and everyone else has an acre, and someone wants to build an apartment building, and you're thinking, this is going to lower the price or the value of my house. I don't want an apartment building. In theory, I love humanity and I want people to have housing, but not on my street, because my house already cost $1 million. It's now worth 1.5 million, let's say. I want it to be worth 2 or 3 million in a few years. And if there's an apartment building or a condo building where people can buy something for 200,000, it's going to make everything look less valuable. So, what do? I know I'll file a lawsuit with the city or the state saying, we have to do an environmental impact statement. And we got to look at what's this going to do to the noise pollution and population and traffic and this and that. And is there a dodo bird somewhere, a condor that might catch a cold because of this? Individually, any one of these concerns, completely legitimate concern. Collectively, it has the effect of helping incumbents. Old people already have houses, see their value go up. Young people, people who've just moved to the state, immigrants, they are totally screwed. That's been the situation now for several decades, which is why, although new people move in and new tech entrepreneurs move into the state every day, middle class, lower middle class people have been fleeing California to Texas, places like where I live in Florida, because the cost of living for housing is so much lower. So this is a smart move by Governor Newsom and the Democrats. The other backdrop you need to know is California is completely dominated by one political party, the party that Newsom is a member of. So they cannot say, oh, it's the other party's fault. They can't say, oh, it's because of gridlock. This is a state owned by the Democrats. The success of the state, arguably, they should get credit for. It's got an economy as big as the 4th largest country in the world. They got more billionaires than any place in the world. You've got 6 of the 10 largest companies in the world based there. So there's a lot that California has done right to create a vibrant capitalistic system that has had a positive impact on the entire world. But there's some things that's done wrong, and housing clearly is something they're doing wrong when you cannot build new housing. So this is an attempt to fix that. We will see if it has the impact that the governor wants and how soon it takes. Because here we are in the middle of 2025. If Newsom's planning on running for president in 2028 means it really has to start in 2027, end of 2027. We're only talking about 2.5 years. So will this change have an impact fast enough for people to actually get permits, build homes, sell them, and people move in? I don't know if they'll be able to move that quickly, but it is something he can point to as making some progress. So we'll keep you updated on that. He's an interesting character, this Gavin Newsom. Whether he becomes the Democratic nominee, I'm not about to make that prediction. I'm not about to predict there's even going to be another election, but we'll debate that another day. Meanwhile, moving on to the next issue. Boy, this is a loud message being sent. And I want to go into it in a little more detail. It's regarding the United States dollar crashing. That's right, it's crashing, worst year since 1973. The US dollar is crashing, and that's a big red flag. The US dollar is on track for its worst year in modern history, down over 7%, and Morgan Stanley says it could fall another 10%. So why does this matter? Because the dollar is the world's default currency. If it drops hard, it rattles markets and makes everything we in the United States import, from electronics to coffee, more expensive. But here's the deeper issue. Investors are sending a warning to Washington. A falling dollar says we're losing confidence. It's a reaction to rising debt, political chaos, and trade wars. They're saying the U.S. might not be the safe bet it once was. Think of it this way. If your paycheck suddenly lost 10% of its value, but your bills didn't, you'd panic, right? That's what's happening nationally, and it could shake more than wallets. Now, important to note that this is not yet converting into inflation, which ultimately is a part of this problem where people would really be able to see it, feel it, taste it, and touch it. It's also one of these things that frustrates presidents of any political party. Top leaders during the Clinton administration famously said, when I come back, I want to be incarnated as the bond market because that has more power than anything. You can browbeat a particular CEO, a particular company into doing what you want if you're the president of the United States. You can also extort them, as has been alleged has to have happened recently with Viacom and other major media companies. But you can't really extort the bond market, and you cannot extort the people who collectively decide what the value is of the dollar. It just doesn't work that way. The power is too diffuse because it's made up from individual investors all over the globe. So this hasn't happened. This much of a drop hasn't happened since 1973, and that's when Richard Nixon ended the gold standard, back when the U.S. dollar was backed up by gold. Meanwhile, China's yuan is trying to fill the void. What's really happening here? I think it shows there is a price to be paid to chaos. Now, you can make the argument that what's happened in the United States in the last 5 months is good chaos needed. You can certainly make the argument, as I would, that it's been disruptive chaos that's had a destructive impact on our economy, on the social fabric. Now, it's true, the stock market is at an all-time high, but it's also had all-time volatility, going up and down just in the last few months, depending on which index you look at, 20%, even 30% in some indexes. Massive volatility. Investors don't like that. And they especially do not like what has been happening coming out of Congress with this, I won't even use the name, its official name, the big something or other, ugly or beautiful, depending on your perspective, bill that came out that explodes deficits like never before. I mean, part of why the US dollar was respected is there was a sense around the globe that, okay, these are serious people here in the United States. They have a serious government. They pay their debts. They have the ability to tax. They have real companies, individuals with real incomes that can be taxed and can, in fact, pay their debts. Well, now, as of just yesterday, a new bill enacted that would cause deficits to explode. We're talking about $3 trillion of extra debt being piled on. Massive, massive debt, unprecedented in the history of the country, and all by a political party that claims to care about deficits and debts, although it only seems to happen when there's a Democrat in the White House, when that becomes an issue. When things are switched, all of a sudden, debts don't really matter and deficits don't matter. So a lot of people are saying, these are not serious people running the United States. Spending going up, cutting taxes, deficits going up, debt exploding. Most economists do not predict that this is going to have a complete meltdown in the next 6 months or the next year. But most serious economists, left, progressive, center left, center right, and even on the right, think that it's a massive problem with our current ability to, anytime things have changed, is to cut taxes and increase spending. Now, I'm not going to tell you I have the magic number for taxation and spending, but most serious economists would contend that when we have a situation like we do now, no war, no massive unemployment, no recession, these are times when we should be running a budget surplus to pay off for the bad times. Because when there is a war going on, I mean a major war, not just dropping a few bombs, when there is a big war going on, when you do have massive unemployment because of a recession, that's when you need the stimulus powers of the federal government's treasury. We don't have any of those conditions right now. So the idea that we're going to run massive deficits now really does strike most economists across the board as absolute insanity. And that is being reflected in the dollar having its worst year ever, or not ever, but since 1973. We'll keep you updated on that. In more economic news and business news, let's take a look at the job market. Some interesting things going on there. American companies are really slowing down. The private sector is pulling back. That is what's happening. American companies are hitting the brakes on hiring. The June jobs report looked decent, 147,000 new jobs, but nearly half were government hires. State governments, local governments in particular. Private companies, they're pumping the brakes. Only 74,000 private sector jobs were added. This is the weakest showing since October. Worse, more than half of all industries cut jobs, something we've only seen twice since 2020. So that's perhaps a little more significant. Well, why is this? High interest rates, tariff uncertainty, immigration crackdowns, and artificial intelligence. Companies like Microsoft, as I reported to you yesterday, Procter & Gamble are slashing jobs. Others like Adobe and Shopify are saying, prove AI can't do it before hiring anyone. The message: employers are scared. They don't trust the economy enough to expand. That means more competition for fewer jobs and growing anxiety for job seekers. This isn't just a slowdown. It is, in fact, a warning. A message is being sent by major companies. And if you're an employer, an employee, I'm begging you, you really need to pay attention. Because The good times could be coming to an end very soon. Now, we're still seeing an economy expanding, but it's very slow. I don't want to sound alarms. Unemployment is at a pretty low rate. It's not impossible to get a job. That's certainly not the case. But these are troubling signs. And part of it is the uncertainty. A part of it is AI, which we'll talk about in the next segment of what's happening. What's the message for you as an employee or as someone running a small business? You got to be better than average. Now, that's not advice that works for a whole society. By definition, most people cannot be better than average. Most people are going to be average. That's simply the rule of numbers. But you're not average. You're smarter than average because you're watching this show right now. You're trying to learn. You're not just looking at silly entertainment. You're not just playing a video game. You're here with me in the Communiverse, trying to learn about the world in a way that will help you improve what you do, not just your communication skills, but all of your personal development skills so that you can be more productive, happier, more successful, do better in your career. That is why you're here, I'm assuming. So I'm glad you're here. I do want to give you some tips and realize if you have a job, don't coast. Don't phone it in. Don't assume, oh, I'm good. My employer's not going to want to get rid of me. It's too hard for them to find someone else. Well, what if they want to get rid of you and not replace you? What if they just have artificial intelligence take over your job? What if they say we can get someone to do it in another country where the cost of someone doing this same thing is 75% lower? Happens every day. Companies don't like to put out a press release promoting it, but it does happen. This is why it is essential that whatever job you're doing, you need to really figure out how to become indispensable. Seth Godin talks about this a lot. One of his most popular books, Linchpin, of you've got to be the linchpin in your organization. If you want true job security, you have to be that guy or that woman that other people come to for help, for advice, for guidance. Even if it's not on the org chart, you've got to be so indispensable. There are a lot of ways of doing that. Sometimes it's just, you're the only one who knows how to use the company's database. And you might be a salesperson, but because you're the only person who knows that, everyone's coming to you. You have an additional role as a IT consultant in your company, even though you're not officially being paid for that, even though it's not on your official job description, it makes you indispensable. So when people are thinking, we're going to go from 5 salespeople to 3 salespeople, you're not on the list being considered to get axed because they're thinking, wow, this guy's the only one or this woman's the only one who knows how to use our database. We can't get rid of that person. You want to be that person. You want to be someone who has personal relationships, not only with your boss, because your boss could get fired, but with your boss's boss. And ideally your boss's boss's boss, and ideally the CEO of the company. You want a personal relationship. Why is that? Everybody's human. Some people think of themselves as cold-blooded and mercenary, but everyone's human, and it's simply harder to fire someone where you already have a human relationship with them. Famously, Donald Trump, who rose to fame through the catchphrase of "you're fired" in his TV show The Apprentice, where he fired somebody every week in his own real estate business, was known for never firing anyone, being a bit of a softy, not liking to do it, avoiding it, procrastinating it, eventually having someone else do it. So when people actually work with you face to face, have lunch with you, spend time with you, it's much harder to be fired. That's why it's not enough. So I don't like to play office politics. I'm going to do my work at lunch. I'm not going to go to lunch with these people. And, it's the company Christmas holiday party. I don't have to do that. Well, you don't have to, but it could literally make the difference between being fired and not fired, or being laid off and not laid off. Let me tell you, I've never been laid off before in my life. Now, I've been fired a bunch of times. I've never been laid off. From an individual standpoint, what's the difference? Today you had a job, tomorrow you don't have a job. So at some level, whether they call it a firing or calling it being laid off, it's a company saying, out of all the people we have working for us, you're not needed. Now we can get rid of you more easily than the other 85, 90% of the company who's being asked to stay. Might not be fair. Life isn't fair. Might not be rational. I wish it were, but my biggest hope right now is to help you. And I want to make you indispensable so that you're not the person fired. If there are mass layoffs, you escape because you have created additional value, more value than the other people you work with. So that's why I'm urging you, really spend some time each day learning how to do your job better and learning how to do the next job. So the transition to your next promotion is seamless because you already know how to do it. No training will be involved. Ideally, you're already doing some of those things. And it's just a natural fit. People who do their job well and do other jobs well and help other people, even though it's not in their job description, are the last to get laid off. When they build a reputation like that, even if the whole company they work for goes out of business, they're the first ones to get a new job because they have strong relationships with everyone else they worked with. So the days are gone when really anyone had job security. I mean, sort of the last holdout for true job security was working for the United States federal government. And in some countries, working for government jobs is still seen as very stable. I realize we have an international viewership and listenership. But even that's gone, as we saw earlier this year, with thousands and thousands and thousands of career civil servants being kicked to the curb. So that's not anything you can guarantee either. So that's why I want you to look at this and be a little bit scared. I don't want you losing sleep at night. But I do want you, I run scared every day. I see what competitors are doing. That's what, in part, what motivates me to learn how to use artificial intelligence to create my interactive AI clone, tjwalker.ai. That's what motivated me to not just stick with in-person training workshops, but to develop an online course and then another and another. And before you know it, I had 300 online communication skills courses and personal development courses. It's in part my love for what I do, my love for helping people, but also in part a little bit of fear of what happens for the day when people say, well, we can't hire TJ, he's too old, or he's too this, or he's too that. He's not what we're looking for. I'm trying to give myself protection, which is why I create courses and AI clones and diversify. It's why I'm here with you today, looking for new ways of marketing because the old ways don't work. There was a time when all I had to do was write a check once a month to my SEO company, and they would get my website certainly on the first page of Google for media training. Many years it was number one. Life was pretty easy. I could just sit back, answer the phone. Life was easy, but I knew it wouldn't last, and it didn't last. The old ways of SEO don't work anymore. Then there was a time when I just got my courses to the top rankings on the platform udemy.com. Udemy had $500 million in venture capital that they would spend advertising my courses and other people's courses all over the globe on every search. Life was easy. New students came in every day. Well, guess what? Those days are, I'm on that platform and have millions of students, but the easy days of just every day, another $4,000 or $5,000 coming in, those days are over too. So you've always got to enjoy the good times, but always be looking for the next thing, I believe, in this economy. And in a sense, that's the nature of capitalism. They call it creative destruction. Sometimes more things are destroyed than others. Some periods are more volatile than others. It certainly looks like we are entering a period where there's going to be even more volatility. And I'm hoping to help you navigate this period of volatility. One of the things making everything so volatile is how artificial intelligence has taken over the world in just the last couple of years. There's been some new developments there. Let's take a look at it right now. AI bosses are now making personnel decisions, believe it or not. AI is now deciding who gets fired, literally. Artificial intelligence isn't just writing emails or helping you brainstorm anymore. It's deciding who gets promoted and who gets fired. A new resume builder survey of 1,300 US managers found that 60% use AI to make personnel decisions, including raises and layoffs. The most popular tool, not surprisingly, ChatGPT, and that is the one I use as well. And I use the paid version. And disclosure, I'm not an investor in them. This is followed by Microsoft Copilot and Google Gemini. But here's the kicker. 2/3 of these managers got zero training on using artificial intelligence this way. They're flying blind, trusting algorithms with people's livelihoods. Lawmakers are sounding the alarm. California has introduced the No Robo Bosses Act to ban AI-only hiring or firing. Meanwhile, job seekers are flooding companies with AI-generated resumes. 11,000 resumes per minute on LinkedIn. Managers are overwhelmed, undertrained, and outsourcing judgment to bots. Bottom line, AI is not just changing the job market, it's reshaping the power structure. And if the robot bosses decides your fate, who do you appeal to? Tech support? So a lot going on here. I am not confident that legislation alone is really going to be able to solve this problem. Because certainly if you're a small company, you post something for a job and you have to hire 8 new salespeople, and your boss says, hey, remember those 8 salespeople I said we needed in 2 months? I have to have them Monday. You're in a complete panic. What do? I can definitely relate to a manager's problem. If you're head of sales, you may actually think, I'm just going to have to ask the AI to pick the best candidates and have them show up Monday. So I don't see how legislation solves a problem like that. What does that mean for you? The message is very clear. More and more aspects of our economy, of capitalism, are being shaped, contoured by artificial intelligence. The very script that I started reading, I'm not doing anything scripted now, but the way I even set this up, I confess, was done in part using artificial intelligence. I did my own research, found articles from reputable news sources I trusted, and then I used AI to summarize, condense, shorten, and give credit to sources instantly using AI. The old way would have been I would have had to hire a professional writer researcher or two. And before you get in the lather and get angry, I didn't fire a writer or researcher. I just probably never would have started a show like this if I'd had to do it in a pre-artificial intelligence, a pre-LLM, a pre-ChatGPT world. I just wouldn't have been able to start a show like this. So what's the real message for you? I need you to realize every single thing you touch, experience, consume in the media, every job post, everything, all of it is shaped by artificial intelligence. You've got to realize that, and you got to figure out how to get above it, how to either use it, ride that wave the correct way, or to transcend it. Now, I mentioned resumes and the fact that companies are using it to weed out resumes. And more people are using AI to rewrite their resume. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm going to now say something a little bit controversial. So let's take just a moment to relax, calm down. I'm going to take a sip of my tea here. Let's all take a breath because I am going to offend some of you. And I'll just say it right now. If you are spending all of your time sending out resumes to get a job, you are absolutely clueless. There's a good chance you're not going to get a job. The vast majority of great jobs, of high-paying jobs, are hired. The people they hire are hired because they had pre-existing relationships, either with the person hiring or high-level people in that company. It's always been that way. It's still that way. The number one mistake I see with people job hunting, whether they're fresh out of college, whether they're mid-career professionals, they're 40 years old and they just lost their job or they're looking something. The number one mistake I see is people putting all their eggs in the basket of sending out a resume. That should not be more than about 5% of your time sending out resumes. And in many industries and many really good high quality jobs, it's a complete waste of time. What does a resume do? It gets you in front of typically a real human being who has the power to hire you. Now, not always, as this story I just shared with you pointed out, but most of the time, and for most good jobs and high paying jobs, an actual human being has to get in front of you. Now, it could be in front of you via Zoom and you're not in the same room, but you got to get in front. So the goal is to get in front of someone who has the power to hire you. A resume is only one tool. It's increasingly, I would argue, the worst tool for you because you're competing with 10,000 other resumes going in through some AI program or some job site or some monster site. So smart people figure, how do I bypass that? How do I actually get in front of someone who has the power to hire me? And the way to do that is to form real relationships with human beings. And here's a key. Here's a little tip for you. If you think you can spend all day long staring at your phone, doing that, you're wrong. You're just wrong. You got to actually talk to human beings. How do you do that? Well, you can go to meetups. You can find out where people in your industry or the industry you want to be a part of meet. Every industry has some kind of either formal or informal trade association. Maybe it's a big convention. Maybe it's just everyone in the media is known for hanging out at this bar on Thursday nights, and that's where they hang out. You got to talk to real human beings. So I'm urging you, I'm on your side. I want you to have a good job. I don't want you to lose a job. If you're trying to find a job, I want you to get one. I'm begging you. If you're currently job seeking full time, well, you need 8 hours of sleep. Let's assume you need 8 hours to take care of your kids, food, shop, things like that. You have 8 full hours to job hunt every day. I am begging you, do not spend more than 30 minutes a day sending out emails and sending out resumes via email. Don't do it. Do some of it, yes, aggressively send out resumes 30 minutes a day. But I'd much prefer you really do some research on a company that is attractive to you. Find their top leaders on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on X. Follow them. See which one of them are leaders, executives, are making videos on YouTube. Learn about them. Build relationships with them. Don't just write them out of the blue and say, hey, can I get a job at your company? Comment on their content. Talk about their ideas. Promote their posts. Share their videos. Add insightful comments. I'd much rather you do that for a week and send one resume after you've laid the groundwork with individuals in that company. So they already feel like they know you. They've already seen you make intelligent comments. They already have a sense that you respect them, that you have an interest in their industry, their company, and the particular things they're working on. And ideally, you don't try to do it in a week. Ideally, you've been building relationships with people, well, your whole career. But if you haven't done that, let's start now with the idea that it might not pay off for 3 months. Maybe you want to give comments to a CEO or a founder or a top executive at a company where you'd like to work. Give comments on their LinkedIn page or their blog for maybe 2 or 3 months before you ever ask for a single thing. Because if you do that, they'll already know who you are. Oh, they'll think, oh, that person's really smart. They've told me how good my posts are, my columns are, my videos are. Plays to their ego. It's cheesy. You could make that case, but it works. The key is I want you to be authentic. Don't spend time following people if you think it's a BS industry or a BS company. Follow people you actually like and you think this would be a good place to work. That's what I want you to do. And if you do that, if you build real relationships, infinitely more valuable than just sending out resumes. Find someone in your industry, maybe a friend of a friend, and ask your friends, may I take you to lunch? I'm not going to ask you for a job. I just want to pick your brain about the industry and get some advice from you. You should be doing that a couple times a week, certainly if you are actively job hunting full time. That's the way to transcend the power of the algorithm. Because in so many cases, people think, wow, Smithers just resigned this morning. We got this big conference coming up in 2 weeks. I need to get someone high quality in here this week. I don't have time to post ads and weed through 10 billion AI generated resumes. If they already know you, if they've already have a sense of what you're about, if you've met face to face, there's a good chance they hire you and you don't compete with 10 trillion resumes. Now, everybody likes to say they love competition, and capitalism is based on competition, but the reality is nobody really likes competition. We all like that monopoly. We would like to have a monopoly of the people being considered for this job. If they're only considering you, your odds go way up of getting that job. Everything I've done in my media training business is designed to position myself as number one in the world. So when a company wants the top media trainer for their CEO or their executive or president of a country or a prime minister, when people say, well, we got to have number one, they don't ask for resumes to come in. They do some due diligence and they find me on Google, they find my books on Amazon, they find my courses on learning platforms. They find other people, not me, saying, TJ, Media Training Worldwide, they're number one. That's what I want. I want them to say, I got to have you. Now I'm not competing with the algorithms because I've laid the groundwork. Now, you might not ever want to have your own business or be a consultant or a training firm. That's okay. But you are the CEO of You, Inc. You can be an employee your whole life. You're still in charge of your own brand, your own reputation. That's why I'm begging you. Don't get buried by the AI. And the way to do that is you have to have FaceTime with real human beings. Lunches, dinners, events, networking events, meetups. And if nothing else, talking to people face to face with your camera on Zoom. You know, one perfectly fine way of networking, start your own video podcast that just talks about trends in your industry. A lot of people who would never meet with you face to face or take a phone call if you said, let's say you're in the, fabric for cleaning eyeglasses business and you want to be in that business, just say, I have a new show and it's called the, what's new in eye cleaning fabric business. So doesn't interest me, but for someone who's in that business, who's never been asked to do an interview before, if you call them, they'll take an hour out of their day and spend time with you. And that can be a way of getting in front of people, connecting your name with the face, gives you an opportunity to talk about what you're doing and form a human relationship. In the same way, I think it's weird and kind of icky that people are marrying or engaging their AI bots instead of a real human being. I think it's odd if you rely on AI to get a job. You need to form real human relationships, whether it is with your personal relationship. Don't just have bots as your girlfriend or boyfriend. If it's your professional life, you need real human relationships. You got to get away from just digitized resumes being sent out. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Communiverse. This is where we cover business, tech, and cultural news decoded through the lens of communication, designed to boost your personal success. Thanks so much. See you next time. If you have any suggestions for topics that you would like to see, please post it in the comments section wherever you are seeing this or hearing it. Thanks so much.